This is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Today I have a very special treat for you. What we're going to do is we're going to compare two juicers side by side. One of the questions I get a lot is, hey John, what juicer should I buy? Well, each juicer works a little bit differently and each juicer has its pros and its cons. So I make these videos to inform you so you can determine what juicer is going to be best for you. Recently I had somebody write in and say, hey John, what juicer juices Cabbage the best? I gave some recommendations based on me juicing Cabbage in the past, but I'm going to juice some Cabbage here for you. Man, this guy weighs a lot. It's about the size of a head. I'm going to juice some Cabbage in both these machines to show you how they both work when juicing Cabbage. So before we do that, let's introduce each of the machines. This right here is the Omega 8006 Nutrition Center. This is what's called a single auger style juicer. So the single auger style juicer runs at a slow 80 RPMs or revolutions per minute. And how it works is basically takes pieces of the produce that you put in and literally squeezes the juice out. It only just takes the produce into the machine and then compresses it and squeezes the juice out. So the pulp comes out the front and the juice comes out the bottom. Now some of the pros of this machine is that it runs at a slow RPM, so it's quiet. It also preserves the highest level of nutrition because it causes the least amount of oxidation. Some of the cons are actually the small feed chute. So you can see this is the size of the feed chute. It's about 1.5 inches in diameter. Now this style machine generally is really good for juicing things like leafy green vegetables. So if you want to focus and juice a lot of leafy green vegetables, I would recommend this style machine. Over on this side we have the Mega Mouth BMJ330 juicer. Now this machine is called the centrifugal ejection style juicer, and this one works actually a lot different than this guy here. This one, let's go ahead and take this apart. This one, to start off with, has a nice large 3-inch diameter feed chute. So you can see the 3-inch diameter feed chute compared to the 1.5 inch diameter feed chute. That's a big difference. Here, I'll put it in the back there. So you can see you won't need as much cutting when you're using the Big Mouth juicer. In addition, on the Big Mouth juicer, the extraction process is a little bit different. You're going to put the produce in, and this blade and screen assembly is going to spin at high speed, and these little teeth on here acts like a shredder. Like if you're shredding carrots on your salad, it's going to micro shred up the produce you're putting in there. As it shreds it up, juice is going to be released, and that's going to go through the screen and come out the front of the machine, which is right there. And the pulp is going to get kicked into this hopper in the back. So that's where the pulp goes. So the juice comes out the front, the pulp comes out of the back. Once again, on this machine, the juice comes out the bottom, the pulp comes out of the front. Let's go ahead and carefully reassemble this machine. Now the other thing to remember is on both these juicers, you do have to clean each juicer after you're done juicing. And each of these machines take a little bit shorter or longer to clean depending on the machine. Based on my experience, this machine, the Omega 8006, it takes me about 1.5 minutes, and this one probably takes me about twice the amount of time, maybe 3 minutes, depending on how bad the screen is impacted with the pulp. The hardest part to clean on any juicer is this juicing screen, so I recommend you use a nylon bristle brush, like a dish brush, to literally scrub off all the particles out of the screen to get it clean. Now if you don't clean your screen optimally, this screen will get clogged up with all the juice pulp, and then next time you juice, you're not going to get as high of yields because all that's going to be kicked out in the pulp bin because the juice can't flow through this screen right here. So once again, we're going to go ahead and put this machine back together. And both these machines are very easy to use and easy to assemble. I'm going to go ahead and snap these latch arms down. So the secret on the Mega Mouth juicer is to take your pulp catch bin, and you want to take a standard produce bag, like the produce bag you buy your produce in. You're going to want to line your pulp catch bin. This will make cleanup much easier than having to clean out the pulp catch bin and wash it. This way you can just pull this out and hopefully compost your vegetable pulp after you're done, and you won't have to clean this part. So we're going to go ahead and put that underneath just like that. Now the Mega Mouth juicer runs at 10,000 RPM, so 10,000 RPM compared to 80 RPM. So the Mega Mouth juicer runs at 10,000 RPMs. That's really fast compared to the 80 RPMs of this machine. Now the pros, because it is running so fast, is that you're going to be done actually really quick. You're going to be amazed how fast I'm going to juice this stuff in the Mega Mouth. The other benefit is that because it has a large feed chute, you don't have to cut stuff up as much. So if you're very busy and you don't have a lot of time to be sitting there feeding stuff, cutting stuff up, and putting it into the juicer, as you'll see in a minute, the Mega Mouth juicer may be for you. Once again, some of the cons, because it does run at a high RPM, it tends to oxygenate the juice and basically make not quite as high quality juice as this machine. But once again, a juice that you make in your own house is always going to be better than a coffee or a soda or canned or bottled juices. So, you know, if the options are either not juicing because it takes too long versus, you know, juicing really fast and maybe getting some oxidation in there, guess what? This machine is better than no machine at all. Another con for this machine, because it runs at a high RPM, it's also a lot louder. That may be a factor if you have, you know, kids or a family or roommates sleeping in the morning, because this machine can get a little bit loud. In any case, those are some of the differences. I guess without further ado, we're going to get juicing. What we're going to juice today, like I had mentioned earlier, is a head of cabbage. We're going to literally cut this right in half to the best of my ability, juice half in each machine, and you're going to see how fast that's done. And then we're going to juice 2 apples in each machine as well. And once again, because of the Mega Mouth juicer has a wide 3-inch wide feed chute, we're literally just going to be able to drop the whole apple in the machine and feed it in one fall swoop. With the Omega 8006, the apple just won't fit. We're going to have to actually cut this up in pieces. So first, what we're going to do is I'm going to cut this cabbage up in half to the best of my ability. Take a nice knife here and slice it right in half. Now this is a purple cabbage, and I encourage you to eat foods of colors. Colors in foods mean that it has different antioxidants that can be very beneficial and helpful to you and to me. Alright, so there I got that in half. And look at that, doesn't that look pretty? You could make some art project with this, like dump it in some ink and then paste it on paper or something. In any case, you can see here we have 2 halves, and we're going to juice each half in each different machine. First, we're going to juice in the Mega Mouth, since that's going to be super simple, super easy. We're probably going to have to maybe like cut this in thirds at this point. 1/3, then we got another third there. So now we're going to go ahead and turn this machine on. This runs at a high speed. You can hear how loud it is. We're literally going to take this cabbage here, whole piece, and put it in there and push it in. You can see the purple cabbage juice coming out, man. That's a nice, pretty treat right there. Next, let's go ahead and drop a full apple in there. Next, we'll put another apple. Followed by another piece of cabbage. Once again, more purple juice. And finally, our last piece of cabbage. And that's it. That's how easy it is to juice in the Mega Mouth juicer. We are done just oh so quickly. Next, with the Omega 8006 Nutrition Center, we're going to have to take this cabbage and we're going to have to actually chop it up a bunch more into smaller pieces so that it can fit in the machine. So I got this cabbage cut up into smaller pieces. We're going to turn this machine on. And now this machine is running at 80 RPM, so it's not quite as loud, and I can still comfortably talk over it. And we're going to feed that into the machine. So once again, we can put that in there, and now we got to use the pusher to push this into the machine. And now out of the bottom of the machine, we're getting the purple cabbage juice, and out the front, we're getting the cabbage pulp. Once again, we're just going to have to take pieces of this at a time and just drop it in the machine. So with this machine, you have a lot more cutting to do. Now we are doing this test in real time, so I'm not going to be editing this, so you can actually see how long it literally takes to juice this much cabbage, and actually you're going to see the yield difference and which one actually yielded more juice. In general, the mega mouth juicer or centrifugal ejection style machines are better for juicing hard vegetables such as things like carrots. Actually, it does a really good job in my opinion. Actually, it will yield more than the Omega 8006 Nutrition Center will. Alright. One of the nice things about the Omega is if you cut things into small enough pieces, it'll kind of almost go in there and almost be self-feeding. Man, this purple cabbage juice is just really pretty. So they say that cabbage juice is supposed to be very beneficial, especially if you have something like an ulcer. Dr. Garnett Cheney worked at Stanford healing people with ulcers using just fresh cabbage juice. And they found that if you actually drank the cabbage juice just minutes after it was made, you didn't get the beneficial effects. Alright, so we're still juicing the cabbage in the Omega 8006 Nutrition Center. Now, like I was just talking about a little bit earlier, I want to encourage everybody to drink their juices right after or as soon as possible after it's made for the highest benefit. Like I just mentioned earlier, Dr. Garnett Cheney was working with people to heal their ulcers, and he found that if the juice sat out for too long, the people wouldn't actually be healed of their ulcers by drinking the cabbage juice. Now, why is that? There's properties in the plants that are beneficial for us, but these properties, especially when you break open the cell walls like we are in juicing, may basically dissipate or oxidize in the air. So that may be the reason for why some people didn't get better. So I always want to encourage you to drink your juices as soon as it's made for highest quality. Also, you want to get the highest quality produce to juice to begin with. So I recommend, juicing organic produce whenever possible. And even better than organic, grow it yourself in your front yard, backyard, or beyond. Alright, so we're almost done juicing all the cabbage in the Omega 8006 Nutrition Center. It has taken a little bit more time because we're having to cut it up into smaller pieces. And of course the machine runs at a lot slower RPM. Hallelujah, we're done with all the cabbage. Next we got to do the apples. Once again, the apples won't fit in, so we're going to have to cut those up as well. Now, if you are wanting to juice apples, it's very important when selecting apples to juice, you want to get hard and firm apples. You don't want to get soft and mealy apples. Soft and mealy apples will tend to turn into an apple sauce instead of an apple juice. So we carefully have cut this up into small pieces. Now we can just drop into the machine. And as we're letting them drop into the machine, we're going to start cutting up this next one. Alright, we're still juicing the apples. Once again, just got to cut them large enough to put them in and then feed them into the machine. So you can already see in the video, this is taking much longer in the Omega 8006 Nutrition Center. So I'm really interested in seeing how the yield will be in the Omega 8006, if it's actually going to yield more than the Mega Mouth juicer. Alright, here's the last two pieces of apple going in the Omega 8006. Hooray! We're finally done juicing the apples and the cabbage in the Omega 8006 Nutrition Center. Next, let's go ahead and turn this off, and now we're going to get to compare the results. So what we're going to do first is we're going to move the 8006 out of the way because I want you guys to see the pulp that each of these machines generated. And it's going to be very interesting. So here's the pulp generated by the Omega 8006 Nutrition Center. We can go ahead and pour that out on here. And you can see we have a lot of basically literally shreds of the cabbage. So actually if you're making sauerkraut, they actually 8006 will actually make an amazing sauerkraut with the blank plate that I actually have another video on. But this broke it down really, really well. Let's next go to the Mega Mouth juicer pulp. We could pour this out. And you can see here a lot of the pulp is broken down into actually really fine and dry shreds. But you can see if we look very carefully, you're going to see whole pieces of leaves that literally just did not get ground up. Actually, here's a piece of an apple that didn't get ground up either. So it's a mixture, you know. There's pieces that are not juiced, but then there's actually nice, fine, dry pieces as well. So for the pulp, I mean, it's almost a wash. Like this pulp is fairly dry. This stuff that is shredded up, but there's a lot of whole pieces left. This stuff is actually still a little bit wet, so it's really going to be interesting to see the results on the yield. So let's take a look at that next. Now on every juicer, including the Mega Mouth juicer, I always like to pour the machine or tip the machine up to get the last bit of juice out of it. So here's the juice out of the Mega Mouth juicer. Let's go ahead and get the same picture in the Omega 8006. And once again, here's our strainer. So this strainer catches all the pulp. So you're probably going to get more of a pulp-free juice in the Omega 8006 than the Mega Mouth juicer. And I'll test that in a second for you guys. And I usually like to just tap this down a little bit, just like this, to get some of the extra juice out and keep the foam and all the pulp in the strainer there. So let's go ahead and pour this into the catch cup that's a similar size, and that's all the way in there. So we still got all the foam that was collected in the strainer that's not going to go in the juice. But if you want, you can mix that foam into the juice, or actually not use the strainer if you want a bit more pulp in there. Nothing wrong with it. I just actually don't like it too much. Now comparing these juices side by side is very interesting. On the Omega 8006 Nutrition Center, it made almost 2 cups or 16 ounces of juice. And on the Mega Mouth juicer, it's actually kind of hard to see, because what happens with the high-speed juicers is there's what's called juice separation. Let me show that to you guys here. Oh, before I do, let me go ahead and tell you the yields here. Man, the yield, it's tough to see because we got the juicer separation. It's not all clearly defined. I mean, it might be 1.5 or 2 cups, but it's kind of interesting because it's kind of more foam and froth filled. The part of juice that comes up is maybe about a cup and 2/3 fresh juice, and then there's a whole bunch of foam. Let me go ahead and show that to you guys right here. So you can see there on the camera, hopefully you can see this guy. I mean, it's juice on the bottom, and then it goes up to like a layer of juice foam, and then at the top there's just more foam, and on this one it's just more solid juice. So definitely really interesting. Let me go ahead and taste these guys, and I'll tell you how they taste like. Actually, I like that one a lot. There's not a whole lot of pulp in there. Let me taste this one next. Actually, aside from the foam layer on the top, actually that tasted good as well. They both tasted really well. Once again, each juicer has their pros and cons. I'd say maybe the Omega 8006 yielded a little bit more than this, but this was definitely respectable. They both did the Cabbage really well in my opinion. If I had to choose one, I'd probably go with the Omega 8006. But once again, the con was it took a lot longer to juice than the Big Mouth, and some juice is always better than no juice. Hopefully you've enjoyed this episode learning more about the Omega 8006 Nutrition Center and the Omega Mega Mouth BMJ330. Once again, my name is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Be sure to visit DiscountJuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for our YouTube visitors.